Yeah, good evening.
Thanks. I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Oh
Yeah,
my
thank you
God.
very much.
I was already, high blood pressure. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's a
thank you so
great
much.
pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Well, today we're discussing with a very a legal practitioner of good repute, an activist for excellence, very young, dynamic individual who's very conscious with his environment. And had so much. So I'm very excited to have you here today.
Thank you
And
very much.
we
Thank
want
you.
to also thank you for taking up the case of Busola Dakolo at that time when everybody is looking up to someone who is strong to be able to do this. Thank you so much for joining
Thank you
us.
very much. Yeah,
I'm very
thank
happy
you.
to have you here. So we're going to just start off because we have used about 6 7 minutes of time. So I'm going to start by just reading a little bit about you and about what you do. Let me just quickly look through my uh, documents and just say a little bit about you before we start off the conversation. Well, Mr. Pelumi is the legal counsel, as I said, to Busola Dakoro on the rape allegation case. He is also the principal partner, founding partner of the Law Corridor. As I said, he's a young, vibrant, and enterprising lawyer of distinction with a wide range of network in the economic, political, and legal world. His interest is the affairs of ordinary citizens in Nigeria, and he has been doing this for the past 10 years. He's very passionate for issues of justice, and because we are discussing gender justice here today, we are very excited to have someone like you to speak with us. You're very welcome
Thank
today.
you. Thank you very much.
Now, I just want to start by asking you a quite interesting question. So, um, why, a lot of people find it difficult to see men who would want to stand to support gender equality. So, starting from that, so how how did you see issues of gender equality, and why do you think it's important for us to have? Can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
All right. Yes. So.
So, quickly, my person is deeply rooted in the values of promoting the worth and dignity of all. And I believe that my own value system, of course, philosophy of life is all about humanity. So at any point in time when I have the opportunity to advance the cause of humanity, I commit my energy, I commit myself to it. And so the founding philosophy of our law firm here is to ensure that we promote the cause of humanity. So promoting gender equality, ensuring that people who have been victim of gender-based violence are protected. I mean, it's an opportunity to do that and something I believe strongly in. And that is why consistently we've been supplying voice and vision to give support for people who have been victim of sexual violence.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. So now I want to ask you, because if you notice in the last few months, there has been some form of spike in gender-based violence, and it's been there, even before then. So, what do you think has led to this increase in gender-based violence, and why do you
I do
think this is?
know, as for me, I think what we are saying today is only increase in the publicity of what's actually going on. The studied experience of gender violence in Nigeria has been there for a very long time and is still there. But what we are seeing currently is that a lot of people within the development space are now supplying voice to give protection and to give support to victims of gender-based violence. If you go to our localities, you go to local areas, you go to undeveloped areas at all, a lot of people are being violated on daily basis. This is simply because there are a lot of societal issues that has given impetus to gender-based violence in our society. So essentially what we are saying today is the fact that a lot of people, a lot of organizations, and perhaps government also are now getting to realize that there's a need for us to act quickly to salvage this situation, because this is crime against humanity. This is something that borders on the dignity and the sanctity of human person. And so what we are saying today, I do not necessarily believe that it's on the increase, but essentially I think what's happening today is that there's more publicity, and people today are gaining more strength, more energy to speak against such a devilish act. People are gaining more energy to speak out. A lot of people who have been victims in the past find it very, very difficult to come out. And a lot of reasons are there for that. A lot of people, because of our culture, because of our general value system, that's created a sort of imbalance in the perception in which you look at men and women and all of that. And because people are also running away from stigmatization, but because of the support recently of a lot of organizations, because of the level of awareness, and because of the fact that people who are saddled with the responsibility of governance are now beginning to see that there's a need for us to address all of these issues, then these things are coming out every day, and people are gaining more energy to talk.
Okay, thank you very much. We talked about a whole lot of factors that you think are responsible for the increase in gender-based violence, the issue of culture, the issue of stigmatization. From the legal point of view, as a lawyer, what do you think would not make someone want to report gender-based violence? What are the factors that you think would not want someone to establish an allegation that has to do with maybe those factors, that has to do with maybe the justice system? What do you think?
Yeah, you see, the Nigerian justice system, the way it is today, is the architecture is not a good one for people who are victims of gender-based violence. And because of the experiences of those who have actually reported cases in the past, and because of how some of these matters have been mismanaged, a lot of people have lost their courage, and they needed encouragement, to come out to speak out against these things, and also to come out to let people understand that they've been victim of such a very bad thing. The reason is that, you see, when you look at the Nigerian prosecution system, prosecution in the real sense of it is not just about the court trials. Prosecution commences for the point of reporting allegations to the level of investigation by the institution saddled with the responsibility of investigating such an allegation. Then before you go to the court trials, because whatever will happen in the court trials will be determined by the quality of case that was reported and the quality of investigation. Now, when you take reporting and the court trials, you see that the center point, the most important point, is the quality of investigation. Now, if someone who is the victim of sexual harassment or gender-based violence reports to police station and the matter is badly handled, the matter is mismanaged, the person will live with a very bad situation. The person's emotional crisis will be amplified, will be aggravated, and someone who is looking for succor now runs into another trouble. When you look at the Nigerian police force, you understand that the process of recruitment of the men into the Nigerian police force is very terrible, is defective. A lot of the training they undertake is simply for physical training, for physical protection, and all of that. They are not well mentally cultured, they are not well mentally and emotionally trained to address certain issues. So when you take such matter to the Nigerian police force, and again, when you look at the issue of inequality in our society, a lot of people who are in the Nigerian police force today did not join the police force because they are passionate about serving their country. They did not join the police force today because they want to become a police officer and they are happy about it. So many people become police officers today because there's no job out there. They believe there is an opportunity for them to get themselves fixed into the society and get salary every month. And so because of this desperation for survival, when they get into the system, it is easy for them to be manipulated. Now, what is the value system of the Nigerian police force? The Nigerian police force is also a product of the Nigerian society. So you have police officers there who in their own house, they violate their own wives, they violate their own children. You have police officers there who are the people committing all of these criminal acts. So when you take such a thing to the police station, the institution that is saddled with the responsibility of investigating such a crime, then you don't get enough. You don't get enough. Also, you must understand that the Nigerian justice system is more or less a political structure. Because for a very long time, a lot of people have been advocating that there's a need for us to divorce the political structure from the Nigerian justice system. The person at the top of the Nigerian justice system in terms of prosecution is the Attorney General of the Federation. The office of the Attorney General of the Federation, and of course the Minister of Justice, is just for a single individual and is politically motivated, is politically appointed. So if tomorrow, if I'm politically influential, if I have social and economic network out there, and I am involved in an allegation that has to do with sexual gender-based violence, I can use my influence within government, I can use my influence within political, social, economic circle to ensure that I get away with such crime. So there are a lot of problems that must be addressed. But essentially, we need to structure all of these problems to ensure that these things are taken one after the other.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you have raised some very valid points about the justice architecture of the country, which we need to take a serious look at. Now, I want to go back a little bit, and I want to go back about to speak more about the Nigerian police. You have talked about some of the incapacity of the Nigerian police. You have talked about the recruitment process. You have talked about the issue of training, and the fact that they play a very important role in the justice process, particularly when it has to do with establishing allegation and also prosecution. Now, I want to ask you, what are the solutions? Since one of the things why we're doing this is also, to find a way, to address the problem. What would be your own suggestion if we have to make, the police better? What are your suggestions to make them much more effective? Or should we just throw them away and take their protections? Or what do we do?
Well, I think what we can do to make the Nigerian police force a better organization to help address issue of crime, particularly issue of gender-based crime, is that there's a need. For example, now a lot of organizations out there, they are doing campaigns, doing a lot of advocacy programs, doing trainings for individuals and all of that. There's a need for developmental organization to also focus on Nigerian police as an institution. I am very sure that the Nigerian police force will be ready to make available men to ensure that they are well trained and equipped in understanding issues like this. And for us to be able to achieve it, because the Nigerian police organization is a very big organization, to achieve that, the Nigerian police force need to specifically create, I think there's a need for us to have some policy redirection in the management of the Nigerian police force. There's a need for us to create a department that can actually cater for example, if you go to some places, you're told that the Nigerian police force has got a family police department, they got this, they got that. Some of these things succeed or survive more in the text than in reality. There's a need for the Nigerian police force to create a structure from the top to the bottom that will take cognizance of issues like this, investigate them properly, and address it. And in doing that, personnel that will carry out this assignment must be mentally trained, must be mentally equipped to have the capacity to take care of it in terms of investigation. And they must have the needed equipment, the needed technology to support their investigation. Because when the investigation is faulty, there's absolutely nothing you can do. And also, we must say that the Nigerian police force will be well motivated. If you look at the wage system in the country, particularly for the Nigerian police force, it's very, very bad. It's very, very bad because if you look at it, vis-a-vis the current economic situation, when a police officer is engaged and being paid 50,000 as a startup, and you've been in the system for 10 years and still be paid about 80,000 naira, 100,000 naira, such person cannot survive. Let me tell you, there's a slogan in the Nigerian police force. There are certain matters that when you get to them, they call it juicy case, that this is a sweet case. The sweet case is not because of the validity or the ingredient of the criminal allegations, but it is sweet for them because of the parties or the characters that are involved, because they believe that it is an opportunity for them to exploit and to be able to gain certain undue advantages. So there's a need for us to ensure that the Nigerian police force architecture is redesigned. Without doing that, and this will start on the recruitment processes. If you look at, I believe the Nigerian police will have a college in Lagos. When you get there, some of them just spend 6 months or probably a year. I'm not too sure. When you go to other organizations in other countries, other climes, police are well trained, and not just well trained, they are constantly being retrained. So I believe strongly that for us to be able to achieve a sane Nigerian police force that can investigate matters like this, it is important that.
So one of the issues you have raised, Barrister, is that you had said that there is a need for funding.
Yeah.
For the Nigerian police force, because one of the reasons why there's been a lot of corruption within the system is that we also learned that police stations are given like 45,000 naira, per year, to run their issues. So
Sadly so.
is it not? It's like garbage in, garbage out. What do you think we can do? And how do you think this is something that the police themselves can lead, or it's something that we need to lead civil society to support them? What do you think about how do we
Yeah.
increase the funding of the police?
Now, you see, the civil society is doing very well. For me, I believe strongly that people who are in position of authority, particularly the president of the country, need to see through all these problems, because it's not something the civil society can make contribution. The civil society can give support, but the civil society cannot alter certain policy heresies within the police structure. When you talk about funding, it is not as if the Nigerian police force are not getting money at all. But it is because the Nigerian police force misplace priorities, spend money on things that are irrelevant, spend a lot of money in protecting VIPs and all of that. But the Nigerian police force has refused to put in a part of their. If you look at the Nigerian police force, budget every year, you begin to wonder that where are all this money? But when you go to police stations in our suburb, you'll be disappointed, because anyone who is a victim of gender-based violence, who is supposed to go to the police station to make a particular report, and who is supposed to be given the proper attention, the needed psychological support and all of that. If you go to any police station around, you get nothing. This is simply because you get some police station, there's no light. You get some police stations, the people who are there are badly mannered, they are not well cultured. And I think also this is about there's a need for us, particularly those who are in charge of the Nigerian police force, Nigerian police organization, to commence proper reorientation and develop a new value system. There's a need for people who are part of the organization to begin to see the organization as an opportunity to serve the nation. And until then, there is no way we can address some of this problem. For example, when you talk about the Nigerian police force, is just a part of the general architecture of the justice system. And I think the man who is in charge of the justice system in the country, the Minister of Justice, should consider that very important, because the Nigerian police force work in hand in hand with the Department of Public Prosecution. And you discover that some of these people share similar traits when it comes to issue of investigation. We've seen it a lot of times. We'll continue to see it, because there are times that you make complaints in police station and they just dump it. There are times that they go for your complaints because there's a lot of public outcry and they needed to do something to give a public perception that they are working. So it's actually a very bad situation we have in our hands. And if we don't address it, the situation will continue that way.
I agree with you. We have a very bad situation in our hand. We have a system where we don't even have funding to support, the justice system. There's a whole lot of corruption, and you can also see that also affecting, the police system itself. Thank you very much. You are indeed the lion of the law. Thank you very much. I've seen a lot of people have talked about that, and they have gone. So if you're just joining us, you are welcome to this very interesting conversation. I have with me a lawyer par excellence. His name is Mr. Pelumi Olajengbesi, who is a lawyer and who is an activist who has been at the bar for over 10 years and who has been supporting gender equality issue. He happens to be the lawyer who worked on the case of Busola Dakolo. So we have been having very interesting conversation about how do we contribute to changing the narrative of the justice architecture that we have currently that has failed to address justice issues for us as Nigerians. So we are going to be speaking now more around the issue of evidence. I remember that evidence is a very important thing when it comes to addressing the issue of sexual and gender-based violence. So when we have cases of sexual and gender-based violence, for example, we have what are the kind of
For example, if you have what?
if we have like rape cases,
Yeah.
well, what are the kind of evidence that you think that the survivor should, you know, gather together to be able to have a seamless prosecution?
Yeah, you agree with me that rape case is still within the gamut of criminal trial, and the business of criminal trial is proved beyond reasonable doubt. So it's actually a very serious test, and anyone who is involved must be well equipped for that. If in a rape case, essentially, one of the major challenge with criminal prosecution and trial in court in Nigeria is that we do not have uniform laws anyway across the country. The laws that operate in the south quite different from the one that operates in the north. You know, there are certain laws that have been made also that a lot of states have discountenanced, and some of these things are creating a lot of challenges. So the body of proof and the required evidence you want to use to establish a case of rape will be dependent on, I mean, the jurisdiction that the matter is being committed. For example, if you look at the recently enacted Violence Against Persons Act, the law is so good and it's so sweet, and it's so good that it encourages people who are victims of rape not to go beyond the needed threshold of proving penetration. But then if you go to some jurisdiction also, you discover that penetration is simple enough to establish rape. So when you talk about evidence in court in rape matter, essentially one thing that is very important is eyewitness. And it is a very, very difficult thing to achieve or to attain. And that is why you see a lot of people, when they are not caught in the act, when there's no prima facie evidence against them in a rape matter, you end up having them convicted for lesser offenses. Because if someone is being prosecuted for rape case and you can sufficiently establish case of rape, probably the person can be convicted for sexual assault, outrage of chastity, and other similar minor offenses. But then if you want to establish rape in a Nigerian court generally, the first thing you must think about is that witness, the most important witness, which of course the most difficult to do, is witness of an eyewitness. And usually, because you cannot get another eyewitness, usually the person who is the victim of the event, who is the victim of the rape act, usually is the person who comes to court to present herself as the witness. And you know, because of our culture of stigmatization and all of that, and because the Nigerian court system also has refused to acknowledge the fact that matters relating to rape should be treated sui generis in a very special way, not in the open glare of the normal Nigerian court by law, we end up having a situation whereby people who are victims of rape find it difficult to go to court. Another very important evidence, material evidence, is medical reports. In right now today, some of our hospitals now have rape kits where you can.
Now, talking about the medical reports, yeah, because I remember that I'll go back to that. I know there was a time when the PRO of police was saying that one of their major challenge of responding to rape cases is the fact that they find it very difficult to get the required evidence. Now, you're talking about medical reports in a country where we have not developed our forensic medical examination processes. So,
Yeah.
and people have to rely on government reports and all of that, and that can be motivated along the line. What do you see as weaknesses in that?
Yeah, it goes to show that generally the institutions that should be assisting people who are victims of gender-based violence are not well equipped to assist us, and that is why you see some of these cases survive more in advocacy than in court trials. And that is why we as lawyers also, we've devised means to take advantage of the civil prosecution, civil action, which is just based on balance of probabilities. And you know, some of these people also find a means of escaping civil prosecution because they believe that they can be easily nailed at the civil level. So when you talk about medical kits or the medical evidence, for example, if you go to some court and you present medical evidence coming from a private hospital, the court can decide to discountenance it because they believe that they can only recognize a public hospital generated evidence. And then when you talk about public hospital generated evidence, you have some doctors or medical practitioners who lack the needed orientation and manners to even attend to victim of rape. And so you get there, instead of giving you the needed kits to get all the material evidence, I mean, to do, to get all the material evidence, they end up asking you questions in the name of consultation and all of that. Questions that can be very, very irritating. So if we must address that, I think there's a need for us to ensure that most of our police stations should be at least equipped with minor rape kits. These are little things that any police station can have, so that if you have within the suburb that there's a complaint that has to do with rape matters, do not forget that gender-based violence is not just about rape. As rape is just the most notorious and the most disturbing, because people find it difficult to get justice when it comes to issue of rape. And when it comes to issue of rape, because rape usually is perpetrated by it's always perpetrated in a closed arena. It's not perpetrated in an open place. And because of this reason, some people, when they are victim of rape, they find it very, very difficult. Some people gain power to even speak out after a very, very long time, having gone through a lot of emotional distress, trauma, and all of that. So some of this, the greatest challenge of ensuring that we get justice when it comes to issue of rape is the issue of evidence. Because we talk about eyewitness, you also talk about medical report, and the two are things that you can't easily get given the circumstance we have in the country.
Well, thank you very much. And I get, I'm also a lawyer, so I understand where you're coming from, and I know the challenges that people have to face in terms of getting the required evidence. I am also aware that in recent time in Lagos State, for example, with the Mirabel Center, which is providing some forensic medical support for victims of and also survival of rape. I learned that in the last 5 years they have been able to support about 5,000 people. So you can imagine how many more people, if 5,000 can be supported within Lagos, you can imagine how many people across the country need the kind of help. Now, you talked a little bit about the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act when you were talking. And what you were trying to do was try to juxtapose it with the criminal code and the penal code. Can you tell us about, now as we speak, about 14 states have passed it? I know a lot of people think it's 16, but it's 14 because Osun State has the prohibition of domestic violence law, likewise Oyo State. So we still have about 14 states, that have been able to pass the Violence Against Persons Prohibition law.
Yeah, what are
the unique thing about this law? And why do you think there seems to be a lot of advocacy to ensure that that law is passed in more states? What are the unique things? What do you think is going to help in terms of addressing?
Yeah, for me, I believe that this particular law has successfully demystified the idea about rape allegation, idea about the possibility of establishing rape cases in our court. And because of this reason, if you look at the first section of the law, it dwells solely on rape and it simplifies rape, and it goes further to a level that things we consider ordinarily as outrage of chastity has now become rape. Because rape essentially has to do with you taking having sexual intercourse with someone without the express consent of the person, or when you get the consent and the consent is obtained by fraud. But now we have a law that talks about not just sexual intercourse, a law that talks about you doing certain things that are sexually inclined, and all of these things amounts to rape. So when you have someone who has committed the real rape himself, I would think he can get away with it. There are other elements that can be pinned down on him to suffice as rape. So the good thing about the law is that the law is very, very simple. The law has stated out all the major offenses, and it has stated also the elements that is needed to establish in court. And essentially, the good thing about the law is that if you can't establish all the elements that is required in any of the sections where the laws are well spelled out and defined, when you can establish certain elements, those elements will go for a particular offense that's also been defined by that law. And so if we have something like that, it's going to encourage a lot of people, because at that level, nobody will be talking necessarily about medical evidence again. Nobody will be necessarily talking about eyewitness. People will be concerned about what are the things that transpired when you took advantage of this person. So essentially for me, I think the law is a very good one, but the unfortunate thing is that there are places in the country, there are states in the country who are yet to domesticate the law. And some of these people are refused to domesticate the law because if you go to national assemblies, you go to some major agencies in government, you see that we have a lot of reported cases of senior officers, violating junior officers, senior officers taking advantages of junior officers, and people are running away from all of this problem so that they don't become victim of the law they also encourage to come to fore.
Thank you very much, because I think the VAP Act really came at the right time to redress a whole lot of issues, to redefine what rape is. He talks beyond penetration. He even talks about objects, where you use objects in a sexually related manner, to abuse a woman and all of that. So it's really, and it talks about beyond rape. And I think it also gives a better punishment, if you compare it to the kind of laws that we were having before. It talks about maximum punishment, which is the life imprisonment, amongst others. But the challenge that I think that a lot of people still have is that, despite the fact that the VAP Act would have done that, but you still have to read it with the Evidence Act. So is it possible for the VAP Act to be effective without the amendment of the Evidence Act? What can you say about that?
You see, any serious lawyer would not encourage for the amendment of the Evidence Act, really, because the burden of proof usually is always with the accused. And so we do know, and if you're saying you want to amend the Evidence Act, then it means that you want to transfer the duty of proof to someone else, which might not be necessarily good for our criminal trial process, because the criminal trial is not just about rape alone, it's not just about gender-based violence, it's about the...
Is it not possible? Yes, thank you very much. But I'm thinking that, so is it not possible, particularly looking at the peculiarity of the rape cases, so can there not be an exception where there can be a exception to the rule? That
essentially, just like how we have the National Industrial Court, just like how we have the Election Tribunal, I think what we need to do is for us to create a special court to address gender-based violence. Now, this special court will have its own rules. This special court will have its own enabling law. And this special court will now encourage, will now come up with laws that will allow people, that will create a procedure for proving such allegation in court. So, for example, now we have the Electoral Act. We have a lot of laws guiding the Election Petition Tribunal. When you go to, for example, when you are in the industrial court, there are certain things that are strict liability issues that the industrial court ensure that it follows certain procedure that has been established by the industrial court. What we need to do is to have a special court to address issues of gender-based violence. I say why we don't have it today is simply because we have a lot of characters within the judiciary system and within the justice system who are too old to appreciate the calamity gender-based violence is causing in the society. We have people who are not aware enough. Some of these people get to know about some of these atrocities when civil societies organizations are making campaigns and all of that. So we are yet to get to that stage where people in position of authority will honestly appreciate the danger and the level of a situation we are, and that's where it to be addressed. For example, the National Assembly today will tell you they're enacting a law to penalize this rape, to increase the punishment for rape. I do not think it's just about punishment alone. Like I said, we need to address our value system. We need to address issue of social inequality. To be frank with you, if you have interacted with a lot of people who are victims and you look at their relationship with people who perpetrated the atrocity, I've seen a lady who was raped just because of 2,000 naira. She was coming from school. She left school because she didn't have money to pay for the PTA or something. And someone who offered to assist her to give her 2,000 naira end up raping her in a mechanic workshop. I've seen a lot of people also who commit these offenses out of frustration the society has unleashed on them. So we have a generation of people that are frustrated. We have a generation of people who are economically and socially excluded from opportunities, and we have a lot of problems in our hands. So even while we are being reactive in our action, there's a need for us to also appreciate some of the problems and ensure that some of these problems are addressed. So people in National Assembly should not just bother about sitting down alone to create laws to increase the level of the punishment. We should also think about creating a special tribunal that can address gender-based violence, a special tribunal that can be sensitive enough. You know, some of our judges have their value system, have their orientation. Some of our judges are jurisprudence based. Some of them believe in the Augustinian school of thought, while some of them believe in the sociology school of thought. Some of them believe in the pure theory of law. And so some of these people, when you read their judgment is being influenced by their opinion and by their worldview. So we need to recruit judges who are passionate, who understand the danger of sexual-based violence, gender-based violence into
I cannot but agree with you. If you look at some of the cases, even at the regional court during the Rwanda genocide, the tribunal, and all of that, some of the initiative that we had with respect to rape law today came because there were judges who understood, you know, the gender implication of what happened at that point in time. So it's very important to have a specialized court. That's quite important, and I can see a lot of people agree with you that that's something that's very important, so that you have judges who have clear understanding of some of the issues with respect to sexual and gender-based.
Yeah, and essentially, we should also stop trying rape cases in the open court. I do not think it's a good thing for our society. Our society has not evolved to that level. You know, you go to some courts where rape matter is being tried and people in audience are laughing. People, even the prosecutor is laughing, and we are only making nonsense of the entire process. This is something that has to do with humanity. This is something that has to do with people's life. This is something that affects people for the rest of their life. So I think the court system needs to be more sensitive about gender-based violence.
Yes, I quite agree with you. So it's very important for us to also do this in a very open court. So, you know, we're moving to the end of the program. I'm going to be asking you, in terms of advice, if you are speaking to somebody who is either a victim or a survivor of violence against women and girls, or sexual and gender-based violence, what will you be telling them? What advice will you be giving?
The first thing I would like to advise anyone who is a victim of such a situation is that such people need to be encouraged to understand that they have a right to be protected, and it's within the law to ensure that they are well protected. And they should also understand that in life, a lot of people believe that when they are victim of sexual or gender-based violence, that's the end of the road. No, it is not. We need them to understand that there are a lot of people, there are a lot of constituency in our society who love them, who appreciate them, who see them as people who have roles to play in making our society better. Anyone who is a victim of such a bad adventure, such a person has gotten an experience to assist other people who are coming behind, who are still within the shackles of, because some people are victims of it and they continue to remain in that situation for a very long time. So anyone who is a victim of gender-based violence, particularly anyone who is a victim of rape, the person must get up, stand up, and understand that there's a need for the person to liberate others from this inhumanity.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, what would you be telling the government? What else do you think they need to do? They have declared a state of emergency.